Hello, I'm Ricky.
And I'm Joe, and this is the 15th episode of Season 2 of the Beer and Broadband podcast. Should come out on October 10th, 2019. Getting into them Halloween seasons.
Spooky month.
Spoopy. Well, and I didn't screw that one up like I did last time, so, that's good. Let's get right into the beers, and in a fall kind of think of things... we're going to talk about the Allagash Barrel and Bean. It's a triple L aged in bourbon barrels and blended with cold brewed coffee. Let's see. It is 10% ABV, so it's a little stout. For Barrel and Bean, we age our triple, or triple, I'm not sure how to pronounce it, a Belgian-style golden ale in bourbon barrels for 7 weeks, then blend in cold brewed coffee from Speckled Axe. Flavor notes include vanilla, caramel, and a dash of cold brewed coffee. We brew all our beer at a single brewery in Portland, Maine. And they've been doing that since 1995. And they say that they give free tours. Or
really?
Give tours. I don't know about free. But they say they'd love to have you come visit. And I'm looking for the ABV. 10% ABV. I was looking for an IBU, I'm sorry. But I don't see an IBV by
okay.
IBU. You look like you drank a little bit of that. You want some more?
No, I don't think I do. But here's the thing. I'm going to preface this that I don't think this beer is bad.
Okay.
I'm not drinking a lot of it because I started drinking some. My whole body shivered. I'm like, okay. I think my body just doesn't like this being on the layers of porter we just drank from the previous episode.
That's possible.
It is fairly good. It's got some of that good, like bourbon flavor to it.
Yeah,
and,
it does.
And more than just the taste, it's almost got like the feel on your tongue of it. There's some of that like heat and burn that just kind of like sits with you for a little while, more than the beer does. Most of the time you drink a beer, it's kind of the hops that sit on you or whatever their kind of flavor additive they're going with is. It's fairly smooth. No part of it is super more pronounced than the other, so it's not like the coffee's taken over, the bourbon's taken over. It blends pretty well. It's a smooth drink. Got a good a very pleasant aftertaste.
Smells nice too.
Smells real good. It's just I think my stomach's just not having it this morning.
Well, so we tried to make a triple once, and that didn't turn out so well. But I've had other triples. Yeah. That I really like a whole lot.
I still think a triple would be a very good style of beer for us to make.
Yeah, I agree.
We made the triple part of it well. Yeah. It just didn't ferment right. That was totally a fermentation problem as opposed to, how long we boiled the hops and everything like that.
But the point that I'm making is that I like them, and I've never had one that had a bourbon barrel aging process applied to it, and I've never had one that was like a coffee triple. And these are two things that I love, and so this beer with that, and this is my favorite kind of like more blonde beer. I love this. Yeah, this is fantastic.
It's got a really good taste to it.
And this is like up there with Dragon's Milk. I really like it. I'd drink this anytime I got my hands on it.
Yeah, what I'm really in love with is just the feel of it. Like, it finishes very clean, and all that stays behind is kind of that bourbon-y sort of flavor and that feel on your tongue. I mean, it's not in the realm of like a cocktail. As you think about things like whiskey cocktails and kind of like how those taste as like an aftertaste, that's kind of what you're going for. And yeah, I'm all about that. That's pretty good.
Yeah, so I'm just going to tell you right now, regardless of what we say about the other beer, because we're not really comparing these two, they're not exactly the same. Regardless of what we say about them, this beer is one that everyone should try at least once, especially if you like anything to do with whiskey. Yeah. So let's talk about the Sycamore Pumpkin Latte Blonde. It's a blonde ale with coffee and spices. And evidently those are pumpkin spices. It says it's 5.8 ABV. I don't see the IBU rating on it. It looks like it's a family-owned thing. It's a North Carolina beer. Sycamore's from Charlotte, North Carolina, so the local people always love to get from them. But yeah, I don't see an IBU, and they don't really have a description or anything like that on it. So
yeah, IBU probably isn't that high. It's not bitter. It does do a very good job of kind of nailing that like pumpkin spice latte sort of feel. It's very pronounced coffee. You get a little bit of pumpkin flavor, but it's mostly the pumpkin spice, which, I mean, that's what a pumpkin spice latte is. That's pretty smooth. I actually like that.
Yeah, this is the... So, I know the other two beers that we had three podcasts ago now were pretty good. And that... so, I think it was episode 12 that it was episode 12 that we had the pumpkin beers. And they were pretty good. The one was not as good as the other. This one has a great pumpkin, actual pumpkin kind of aftertaste to it, and the pumpkin spice, as far as a latte goes, is kind of nice there. That being said, I do love pumpkin things. Even before it was popular to have pumpkin pie drinks and things like that, which are not... That's not necessarily my favorite, but I really, being a Southern boy, love pumpkin pie. Love it. During the fall, whenever my grandmother would make it, I just eat it all up.
Yeah, pumpkin pie, pumpkin bread, all of it.
All that stuff. So this is something I could see me, in the evening, sitting down outside by a fire, drinking and having a slice of pumpkin pie with it, or some turkey and cranberry at dinner, and drinking this with it, and it would kind of go well with that.
Yeah, and the coffee notes aren't strong enough. I could probably have this anywhere I have coffee. I don't drink early in the morning, but I got a relative that calls beers like this a breakfast beer. Mm-hmm. You could absolutely have this almost any time of day with almost anything. I mean, if you can drink a cup of coffee with it, you could probably have this beer with it.
Yeah, I would accept that. I probably wouldn't have this with that. This is very much a good pumpkin-y kind of drink, though. I think this is my favorite of the season so far.
Yeah, it's really good.
And I love the smell of it. The three today that have just had really good smells. I don't know if you sniffed this one or not, but it just has this kind of caramel, pumpkin smell.
I mean, it very much does smell like a pumpkin coffee.
Yeah, it's very nice. I could just drink that all day.
Yeah,
I might go back and get some more. I got these from a new place. I can't remember the name of it. It was just a new shot. Yeah. Next episode, I'll go back and I'll grab some more of these Sycamores if they have them. So, talking about exciting news. So I don't think we said anything about Spider-Man from the MCU. I know that we've talked about being MCU fans. But Spider-Man's gone.
Yeah. Well, he was gone.
Oh, that's exactly what I was going to say. Yeah. I was going into it. I didn't know if you read the notes. Okay, but he's not anymore.
My wife burst into my office to tell me when it happened. She no respect for my work. Just love you, baby. But she barreled in. It's oh, Spider-Man's going to be back now. It did the same thing. BoJack Horseman's ending, but
it's, BoJack Horseman. Hand on heart, that sucks.
That's a great show. Well, they're getting another season, so this is going to be the last season.
But at least they're ending it. It's kind of so Supernatural. It's not my favorite show. My wife really loves it, especially the first 5 seasons. But I would watch it and tolerate it, and there were some good things about it because I felt like the first 5 seasons had a coherent storyline. They were pretty good, but CW just kept it going for too long. I would prefer a show I can watch over and over again.
Exactly.
For a good set of content.
Yeah, and that's what I told my wife, is that I would prefer a show be a little bit too short than be too long. Because when they go on too long, it almost spoils it. If it's a little short, you can still be oh, maybe it'll be a spinoff, or maybe you got some stuff in your imagination, but everything you have is still really good. When it goes on too long, then you suddenly got things that are bad, and you don't want that.
Yeah, but when shows, so that it happens when they're too short and when they're too long. If they end a season too early, you can complain about it, but it's not that bad.
Yeah.
If they go a season too long,
that's a season nobody talks about.
Yeah, it really ended here, but it's not that big of a deal. But if you got a show that goes on for double the amount of time that it was going on, or you have a show,
well, Firefly, you get 1 season.
Yeah, you get 1 season, but it is so good, and they kill it. Yeah. So, anyways, back to Spider-Man.
That's right. Back to Spider-Man. Spider-Man back.
Spider-Man's back. Super happy about Spider-Man being back because. And now, here's the thing. I love Spider-Man. Had some things happen, wasn't able to go watch the movie in the theaters. But I got it coming, for Far From Home. I'm pumped about this. I have avoided spoilers. I've avoided all this stuff.
And it's really good you mentioned that you hadn't seen it yet, because I was about to go into some stuff.
Yeah. Well, that
you
was
were about
fine.
to get spoiled.
I was about to be upset.
Yeah.
But I got it. Without watching it because I knew it was going to be good.
Oh yeah.
I knew love Into the Spider-Verse. I don't like Miles Morales' story, but I like his character when it's like he's the other Spider-Man in the universe with Peter Parker.
Yeah.
I love that kind of mentor interaction that they have. I even like Spider-Man 2099 and all, like, it's just Spider-Man, Ben Reilly, like all that sort of stuff. That's all fun stuff for me. I like the different Spider things. I like Spider-Gwen. Like, I'm down for all the Spider-Man stuff.
Yeah.
Which, by the way, I think Spider-Gwen might be my favorite Spider-Man story that's other than the original Spider-Man. Yeah, because it's just like she's got some really interesting things going on with her. So, and I mean, yeah, not to go off too much, but there's like Spider-Man and Batman.
Yeah.
Like, I love Batman, I love Spider-Man. Captain America was my bro, but then they kind of screwed Captain America up with some new stuff. So, like, I don't like Captain America's newer comics as much, but I used to love Captain America a whole lot too. But I don't have like Batman. Like here on this shelf beside us, there's a Spider-Man and a Batman.
Yeah,
like I love the stuff. And I was so disappointed that this was one of the best Spider-Man films series that had come out. There's some weak spots to it, but this was one of the best things, and it tied into a larger Marvel universe, which I was super excited about. And having it end just so abruptly was so sad for me.
It was.
Having it come back as a big Spider-Man fan.
Yeah,
huge.
I'm glad they were able to work something out. Because that just came down to companies, arguing of who gets what profits and stuff like that.
Absolutely.
Yeah, and I've heard they're both going to be producing this. Like, if Spider-Man's in it, Sony gets to have some sort of production level role in it, and I think that's just because they can split the movie profits. Because it might not be 100% accurate. This is how I understand it, because a lot of information was coming out that the whole reason we kind of lost it is that Disney was getting all the movie money, but then Sony was getting the merchandise money. Merchandise isn't as big as it used to be. Like, it's not, it's not insubstantial, but more people are watching the Spider-Man movie than are buying a Spider-Man T-shirt.
Yeah, well, yeah. So there was a renegotiation because they only had them for like 2 films. Yeah, they had them for 2 films. Renegotiated, but that was the deal that Disney was offering, is that you'll get all the merchandise money, we'll get all the movie money, and they weren't happy with that. They weren't happy with that because it was like the last Spider-Man made like $1.5 billion.
Oh yeah, it's a ton of money. Yeah. So I'm just hoping, now that we've had like Into the Spider-Verse, I feel a little bit more comfortable with Sony having a little bit of a role in it, because most of the Spider-Man's movies have not been great. There have been some good ones, but they have not overall been amazing until...
Well, so the production value's always been really good for them, though.
Yeah.
The Tobey Maguire one, I mean, we can forget about Spider-Man 3, but Tobey Maguire and the other dude that played the...
Yeah, I know what you're talking about.
Yeah. Those two things... The
production value was always really good. Yeah. For time appropriate, clearly they invested good money in effects. So
if they're involved in the production, I don't mind that. As long as they're not trying to, like,
change the story too much. I don't need to see Uncle Ben again. We've seen him enough.
Yeah.
But, Uncle Ben, great guy, but you're dead. Just stay dead. Stop readjusting every Spider-Man iteration. Because that's what I was most scared about.
Yeah.
Was that they weren't going to, okay, it would have been sad Spider-Man's gone. But even sadder, it's like, we're going to redo Spider-Man again.
Yeah.
Let's
just move on with the story. Let's keep going forward. There's so many other good things that we can tell from the Spider-Man comic that, like, I mean, Spider-Man and Deadpool, they have like kind of a bromance. It would be great if since now Marvel has the Deadpool rights, if they pull in, I mean, could you imagine Tom Holland and we get the current Deadpool up on there, getting Ryan Reynolds and Tom Holland like on the same screen doing their PG-13 and rated R like stuff together. Yeah. It would be amazing. So that's the sort of thing I'm looking forward to, I'm hoping. that will go forward with this. And I mean, if they hadn't have done that, that would have just been so much money lost.
It would have been, yeah.
Because that's such a popular thing right now.
It really
so many
is.
nerds are like,
and especially because they're building him up to kind of be like the next like Iron Man surrogate sort of thing for the MCU.
Yeah, I guess so. He really shouldn't be, but he could be if they play it right. Because I mean, Peter Parker has some things that he can lend there. So let's talk about the Facebook cryptocurrency. I think it's called Libra or Librum. No, Libra. Yeah. Libra is the name of it. So we're just mentioning this because it's while we were on break, they started kind of bringing it up more. And I didn't feel like it was necessary to talk about it because it kind of ended up being a thing that Facebook got regulated out. They were told they had to stop working on. They weren't allowed to release it to the public and some other things like that, especially in America. It looks like some of that's changing, and that Facebook might be able to like go forward with some of the work that they're doing there, or at least I read something that said something to that kind of effect. And so now I feel like, okay, well, since that might be on the table again, let's talk about it for just a moment. How do you feel about so we've talked about like some of the interesting things about cryptocurrency. One of the best things about it is that it's anonymized.
Yeah.
How do you feel about a company that is going to definitely de-anonymize that?
Yeah, I mean, and here's the thing. I think the big cryptocurrency push with the public fell through. You know, we saw it with Bitcoin, and a lot of people got a lot of news attention, but then also got a lot of news attention when it crashed. So it's going to be harder to get regular people into it again. Coming from a company like Facebook that's going to have a reason to want to use it, but it's also going to be tied so into your social media, it's probably not really going to be anonymous. I imagine it is going to turn into Facebook currency. Yeah. It is going to be what you do your little app purchases with. Yep. It's going to be what you do this with, and that's what it is. Which is sad because you're wasting the potential of a cryptocurrency with that. But that is what I see happening, is that it becomes this Facebook premium currency thing they get to play with.
But what if everybody got, the ability to mine Facebook the more social media posts they had, right? So they got more Libra currency when they put more social media posts out there, and they were able to, if they got more likes on their posts, they...
Yeah, but thinking about that's not mining. We're calling it a cryptocurrency because, that's the technology it's built on. But that's just a premium currency. I mean, there's plenty of systems that exist like that for other things, where it's like, oh, you did good in this game, or, oh, it's... Or even it's like we used to have, I don't know if they still exist anymore, but like when I was growing up, there were tons of these like free browser games that had like social media aspects to them, and it's like, oh, you got this post, you got these likes, here's your 50 gems, like that sort of thing. That's just what it's turning into. And that's the way I want to think about it, because thinking about it like a cryptocurrency lends itself to a lot of expectations I don't think it'll have. I don't think it'll be anonymous. I don't think it'll be unregulated. I don't think it'll be freely transferable. This is going to become, some sort of incentive to use Facebook more, or give Facebook more information.
So what you're saying is that if it's not built by a cryptographic algorithm, where it has to solve that algorithm over and over, and it gets harder as it goes forward in the cryptographic lifespan of that algorithm, then it's not really a cryptocurrency?
I guess I'm not really saying that. I guess in my mind, we can call, like, a horse, right? Like, it is probably, by all definitions, technically a cryptocurrency with the way it runs. I don't know enough about the technology that underlies it. But I think, at the same time, you bring a zebra in, and you bring, like, a racehorse in. Yeah, it's both still related to horses. There's some common genes there. They might be in the same, familia of creature. But you have different expectations for the racehorse than you do the zebra. Mm-hmm. When people throw out cryptocurrency, there's this expectation of kind of how it is acquired, the way it's regulated, the restrictions of how you can use it, and things of that nature. This kind of free currency, because the currency part's what gets you. because anything can be currency. You know, as many nations as we've had, many civilizations, currency is just whatever they want it to be. But I don't think this is ever going to be like a currency that's used within like an actual society. Like this isn't going to be like the dollar. It's going to be like the yen, or even like the little clay tokens they used to trade around, like in the agricultural revolution and things like that. This is very much going to be Facebook dollars. It's more akin in my mind to the premium currency we see on other websites than it is going to be to an actual cryptocurrency.
So let me ask you this: what if your browser was to stay open, and Facebook had a JavaScript app that just mined this currency using your computer resources, and it got deposited into your Facebook account as long as you left your browser open on a computer that was beefy enough to run it? How do you?
It's technically, with the way it runs, it's still cryptocurrency. But did I do the exact same thing on Cookie Clicker when I wanted more cookies to play my little web game? Of course I did, and that's what this is going to turn into. Like, I guess that's my hang up is by definition, look at the white papers, what it is compared to what's it going to be used for. If I can't ever use this thing, because no one's going to adopt it except to give somebody a gold on their Facebook post, it's premium currency for Facebook. You know what I'm saying?
All right, so I'm done with playing the devil's advocate. I sitting here just like I couldn't even hardly keep a straight face. I think this is a bad idea. Having Facebook in charge of anything, so that I don't. There's different levels of the devil. There's different. This is one of the 9 levels of hell that we're talking about here. But this is the bottom level. This is the one where you have Asmodeus, or one of the other like chief demons of hell torturing you for eternity. It is clearly a play by one of the worst abusers of human privacy.
Yeah, there's got to be some lawyer's game here to it, because there are very strict regulations for companies having a real currency. I mean, when you look at things like Twitch, why do you have bits when a couple of years ago you could actually just donate money? And I guess you can still donate money now, but it's like a different system. It's because having bits be a currency, like actually used and equivalent to money, is a huge legality issue for these companies. And so that's kind of why I get this feeling that the Facebook stuff isn't going to go anywhere. I don't believe the regulation has changed so much that now it can be a real currency, as opposed to this is our way to mine data from you to get fancy Facebook points.
Plus, I'm not sure I want to go into that dystopian future where companies are creating the currency. They're the ones that are in control of it and things like that. Well, I mean, I don't really love that governments are in control of that things, but that makes more sense because the government is really whether it's for the people or it's not for the people, the government really has to have a populace that it takes care of. It can't neglect one group of people and continue. Like, anytime we see that happening, like where something probably as bad is going to happen to Brazil. This guy is a part of its people group is being neglected, and it's just kind of like, let's do that.
Yeah.
But like in just about every other country, when we saw in Russia the Bolsheviks being neglected, in England in the past where there was the Tudors had problems with being neglected, where the Irish were neglected, where we saw people groups in Rome that were neglected, whether it was the Christians or the Gauls or whatever. When Muslims were neglected at certain time periods in the past, that always had dire effects for whatever people group, and that still happens today. But it generally has problems for the government. So especially when it comes to being able to earn a living or being able to have money or anything like that, having a company that's in control of that,
well,
I'm not sure would have that same.
We've already had something like that, almost at this exact same end where before. I'm failing my history lessons by not remembering the name of it. But like early 1900s, you had people working for companies. They didn't pay you with U.S. dollars. They paid you with company bucks. And the company had provision
their
store.
store. Yes, that was during the mill days.
Yeah,
where the mill controlled everything, and that just fell apart like quick.
Oh yeah, and it was hell. We outlawed it because it needed to be hell, because it was just companies dipping into like they're making money off of you making money, and it's a circular, unlivable system.
India still has a similar thing like that with people that go into like a debtors kind of thing to a company. It is basically short of enslavement, and this is just whatever way Facebook wants to place it. If it was Google talking about it, I might consider it a little bit more, or if it was Apple talking about it, I might consider it. But I think I would still come to the same conclusion that any currency that you would have from a company like that is just a bad idea. They shouldn't be in control of us.
Yeah.
So let's talk about Apple, since we just mentioned them. So you know that I showed you my new iPad OS a moment ago, where I put the iPad down. Yep. Okay. So I do have something to talk about this time. So you know that the iPad has its own OS now, and so the iPhone has iOS. iPad has iPad OS. So I don't know if you can look at this, guys. You can't see this on the podcast. I'm showing this to Ricky, but all the icons and everything got smaller.
Yeah.
So it's more like a desktop. So it's like a 10-inch laptop now for the iPad Pro. And everything has a native dark mode like they went to with the Mac and OS X.
Yeah, I heard about that.
Yeah. So there's some other improvements that they made for whatever reason. But those are the two most exciting. For me, anyways. And I'm going to tell you why, and you can tell me what you think about it. Don't know why I prefaced like that, but anyways,
we're on the podcast. I'll tell you what I think about it. Promise.
But so just like when I talked about having a dark mode on so many other things, it saves battery life. It like anytime I have a dark mode or something that can like mute those really bright colors, it is so painful to my eyes. Especially if I'm in like a darker room or something like that, it blinds me. And Android, the native Android 10 has a dark mode too. That's
I got it on like all the time.
Yeah, so having this, moving towards this is awesome. I hate that my phone is still on Android 9 because I want that Android 10 dark mode. I love the shade that comes down that's dark. I have my Pixel 2. Awesome. It's great. I'm looking forward to getting a phone that has Android 10 eventually. Unfortunately, it'll probably go away with the headphone jack, but
yeah, that's true.
But I'm looking forward to having that dark mode on. But having it on my iPad has been great. It's awesome. And having it on my Mac computers, I'd love for Windows to have a similar thing. It's not like a high contrast thing or something like that.
Yeah, on every device I have that supports it, I go dark mode and I put a blue light filter on when it's at night, and it's so slick.
Yeah,
it looks weird. My wife, after my phone, it's like, "What's wrong with your phone?" And it's like I turn the blue light filter all the way to max.
Yeah,
but I'd be lying if I say I wasn't sleeping better.
Yeah, it's exactly. I do the same thing. Like I have my blue light filter comes on at 7, I think, and on all of my computers, I have that set up. The only thing in my house that doesn't have a blue light filter on it is my TV set.
Yeah,
but I can't do anything about that. So I have all that set up. But I mean, specifically, Apple's moved towards this. Apple in the past has tended to be like an industry leader on these things, and now they're more like kind of following in the footsteps of some of the other places, or they heard that somebody else was doing it, and all these other places are kind of converging together at the same time. So I'm just curious, like, what do you think about Apple following that drum? Is it because it's a good idea, or do they see some sort of profit there? Like, what's kind of the thing that you see being...
I think, end of the day, it becomes those like low-hanging fruits of feature discussion. Like, when you release a new product, you want to have as big a list of new features as possible, because there's a ton of people who aren't going to be technical enough to really know what most of the features are, but they'll have the print out like, look, the headline from PC Tech is 105 new features in the new whatever. And this goes for Apple, but also anything else. I mean, that's just how the technology world is. You want to constantly show, like, quarter to quarter, sprint to sprint, here's our improvement. And I feel like dark mode is a very low-hanging fruit now.
Mm-hmm.
You know, it was maybe a bigger technical limitation in the past because things were a little bit less standardized. But I would really not be surprised if it's not already in Android 10, it'll probably be in like Android 11, that there's a common theme for how to do dark mode. So like if you're an app developer, it's just part of your build tool resources to implement it, and you don't have to do anything custom with it.
I'm looking forward to the day when all of the other programs are able to integrate into that standardized workflow, and they have that dark mode option. So text is bright, you know, like white or gray or green or something like that, and we have more dark themes that can go through these things. That's going to be really nice.
Yeah, I mean, it's not, you know, that really hard to do, but I can see it is a technical barrier. It's getting easier. But I mean, I was playing a little indie game that came out years ago. It's still actively in development. One of these big like community resource games sort of things. But I realized it has a dark mode you can turn on, but it's almost like this like sim life sort of RPG where like, you know, you go to school and things like that, and like time passes, and it has adaptable like dark mode based on the time of day you're in the game.
Oh, that's
like
pretty neat.
In the morning, it's like almost like a pinkish like sunrise, and as time goes on, you know, it hits a dark mode by the time it's 10 o'clock and that sort of thing. And you know, we got indie developers putting adaptive dark mode tied to like, how hard would it be to tie that to an actual NTP server that actually does it live based on time? You know, the technology's out there. It's when did it become easy enough to implement? It's the easy checkbox as opposed to, boy, I have to pick this feature and that feature. I think most of the time it won't win the this versus that. But when it's a checkbox, I think you'd be foolish not to have it.
So I kind of feel like the other way around. So one of the things about it is it saves on battery life.
It does,
because it turns off pixels.
So I think
the screen is the biggest drain here.
People that understand the technology that are gonna use it for even just outside of it's easier on my eyes, you use it for performance and things like that. We value it much higher than, say, my wife, who probably only knows about dark mode of like, oh, it's kind of nice to have that at night when I'm browsing my phone in bed, but I can also just turn down the brightness. So like, what's the difference?
Well, so there is a huge difference.
There is, but I don't think the average person thinks about that.
Well, while that may not be, Apple and Lenovo and all these other companies, they want to go forward and say, my computer is able to last 10 hours.
Yep.
They want to be able to say, my phone is able to last 10 hours or 15 hours or 20 hours with constant use. And the only way we're going to start achieving that is by having these efficiencies where we find places that we're able to use less power, and the biggest power sink is the screen.
Yeah.
And so when you have a more power efficient screen that you're using less pixels to be lit at a time, you're having more power efficiency.
Yeah.
And if we're trying to reach that new development stage of better battery life, that's like one of the next things that you have to do.
That's true, but I still think you get that disconnect with the user because, on one hand, companies do not shy away from throwing a feature if there are a claim on there like, well, this is how long my device lasts, asterisk, in this sort of type of mode and things like that. But if the average person is not using dark mode or isn't really aware of dark mode yet, which I think more and more people are starting to use it. But if you give that laptop to 5 people, and they're just 5 average people, and we say one of those 5 just instantly, I'm going to turn everything to dark mode because I like dark mode, and the other 4 are like, I don't really care about it, and you tell them, your laptop lasts for 12 hours, and it dies after 6, they're going to complain. And they're going to have no legal standing because your 12 hours clearly stated in dark mode, but they're going to be on social media complaining. They're going to be telling their friends and complaining.
Well, but this is the thing that I'm saying. If everything goes to dark mode, then everything is just by default dark mode, and most people are going to pick the default.
Yeah, I mean that's true. But I think at the same time, how do you get there? It has to be a standardized tool in your tool set.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah. I'm not disagreeing. I'm not disagreeing with you. I'm just more putting out there that instead of it being something that's nice to have, I think it's going to become a must-have, like in the future.
Yeah, we talk a couple years from now. I can 100% see that they're just going to ship in dark mode, ready to use. You can swap it off if you want, and that becomes like high contrast mode, or whatever they'll call it, whatever they want. Bright
light mode, bright mode.
Yeah, suddenly it's not dark mode, it's bright mode. Dark mode's default and stuff like that.
And then we'll have people that are like, oh yeah, it kills your battery life, but it's so cool to have bright mode because we've had the darkness forever, and it's been like living in medieval times. I predict that'll happen too.
Oh, it will, but it'll also happen a couple years after that, and we'll have better battery technology.
Yeah.
And
I'm not sure that the battery technology, you're still not going to hit that level of, because in order for a pixel to be in like a lighter setting, it has to be on. So if it's going to be gray or any shade up to white, whether it's red, blue, green, yellow, it has to be on. And so if we're talking about OLED screens or something like that, where you can actually turn the pixel off, and it's just the way you get black is by it not being on, that is a huge difference between the picture being, as far as like a battery goes, between the picture like displaying on all the pixels, even if it's supposed to be black, because they're still trying to like have some shade of gray there because it's on, or you're selectively turning on the pixels. And I think having it on default is going to be a big deal. And having people that are like, oh, later on, this is bright mode. We're going to have bright mode on it. We're going to be able to see everything that's on the phone. And yeah, it doesn't have the inky blacks, but it's so bright. It's white and everything like that. That'll never reach that level of battery sustainability.
It'll never be the same. But I think there is a level of kind of active use time that then is just going to hit a redundant level. I mean, to me, where do I draw that line of, okay, my phone I got to charge every 2 or 3 days about. Maybe my watch, if I'm wearing it, maybe once every 2 weeks. When do I hit that point that extra time is arbitrary? Yeah. If I have to charge my watch every 2 weeks as opposed to every 3 weeks, don't really care about that extra week. You know what I'm saying? Eventually we'll have battery technology that's so advanced. Already the charge time is so long, like, oh, well, yeah, turning on bright mode cuts, your time in half. You only got to charge your phone once a week for all these bright colors. Yeah. There's that sort of thing. It's what I meant. Eventually there is this level of, okay, my device is on long enough, I'm happy with it. And we're kind of already there for our current technologies. People always say, oh, I want a little bit longer. And I think people do online. I'd love to only have to charge my phone once every 2 weeks. But for most people, that feature is not the game changer of, oh, look how much better my camera is. Look at how much better my screen is. And that's kind of what drives it. I think eventually we're going to hit a point where, okay, my screen is really, really great, and that's awesome. This is really, really great. And when we switch over to dark mode, well, then we say, hey, look, my battery's really, really good. But you kind of can't get too much more battery efficiency out of your display screen by being off. There's no more off than off. Right. So when we start talking about now we need to drive battery more, after we make that big hit and we make people really happy, and they're like, oh, I used to have to charge my phone every 18 hours. Now I got to charge every 4 days. That's great. Then we'll say, well, we've got this extra good battery. Charge it every 8 days. And, just like, we're battling now about megapixels and things like that. Eventually we'll get back into that battle with battery life after the first company comes out with the default. They look how much longer mine is.
Yeah, so when we find a new battery technology that lasts longer or something like that, but power efficiency still will be a huge thing for us. And if you have a processor that's more power efficient, because we're going to get those. The ARM processors are always getting more power efficient as we move towards lower nanometer, chipsets, towards the microprocessors being smaller. They become more power efficient. We gain more efficiencies by having being able to spread work across more cores while not having as high of a core count. Then we can have lower power devices too. We can underclock them. There's all sorts of different techniques there. But when you're talking about software, the things that you can do to make things more efficient you start limiting yourself because there's only so many things that you can do to have efficiency. You can lower the amount of processors you're doing at a time. You can, you can lower the, but if it's not using as much of the hardware resources, the software isn't. That's really where you get your efficiency, and that's what we're talking about here.
Yeah, and I'll be honest, I don't see us going that direction. I see us going that direction in terms of features. And when we talk about, dark mode, that's a click button, you're easy. We really are going to start moving towards, when we look at the SDK for, and that's the standard development kit for a lot of these apps. It's what's going to be like button ready that most people are going to use. I think long gone are the days that we do resource management like we used to. Even when I was in school, it was going away. Or really, it was more like the professor was like, well, it's kind of already gone. It's gotten worse since I've been there. There was a time, and there still is in like hardware engineering. But there was a time in software engineering where you really sat down and you said, okay, how big do I expect this number to be when I'm making a variable? It's going to be a 2-bit integer.
Yeah.
And I'm not going to let it be bigger. So I'm going to take even less. You look at how did we get applications that run on half a meg of space, like just on your hard drive, and never more than that. And it's because we had these in languages were harder. It's just C and C++ where those things are integral. When you make stuff in C today, you still have to do that. But now that we've got all of these programming languages that kind of do that stuff for you, they're interpreter-based, it's got to be as big as it needs to be, a lot of that stuff is going away. And, we've got the hardware for it. I'm not saying that's necessarily a bad thing or that we've made a wrong decision there. But at some point, I think we are going to hit that level of on-off. I save the efficiency by my program not doing something as opposed to it.
I think we're in the glory days of that. I think that is going to change within the next 5 years, because like what we're trying to do is we're going for the race for the highest clock counts that we can with our architectures. We're trying to get towards lower processor, more processor counts on smaller processor microprocessors, and our software is right now just like everybody's just like, oh, we can use as much of it as we want to. But the lessons that we learned from the past is that these things are not infinite. And we will hit a wall at some point where we have to start thinking about the actual resource constraints of these things. So I believe that probably 5-10 years down the road, I don't know exactly when it's going to be, we're going to hit a resource constraint where, Apple's to get the same performance that they're getting now, but at like these new levels, when we hit 128-bit CPUs or something else like that, when we get to that point, we're going to have another wall that we're going to hit right before that we're like, oh, we can't go any further with this. To get more performance, we have to start thinking about how we constrain our resources.
Really? That's interesting, because I kind of have to completely disagree with that.
But that's what happened in 16-bit and 32-bit resource management.
Yeah, but not to that level. So here's why I disagree with that. That goes against the opposite of all the market trends when you look at how companies are developing software now. Now, one of the big things, and this is stuff that people don't talk about that much about software development, but if you look at like Silicon Valley, you're going to use like the hotbed for where most big company software development is done. Those software developers are getting paid less and less and less every single year.
Yep.
Because it's kind of becoming easier and easier and easier to develop software as these things are going through. And really, the average company is now not really starting to care about how long their app is out. It's about the short sale of software. And it's not really necessarily true for the operating systems. If we say, hey, in 15 years in Microsoft, are they going to be really heavy on resource constraints? I think they probably will be, because they are today compared to most other companies. Operating systems, hardware engineering, those are kind of the big exceptions. But we've entered a stage that I think most people are not getting hardcore education for computer science classes in resource management. You're getting some of it. You're not getting a whole lot of it. you look at the repos of people writing software today, even in big companies like ours, we're not going into these resource managers, or we're doing very limited levels of it. Maybe in the back of your head you're saying, okay, I have too many sessions open, the server won't handle it, so I have to cap that. Or I'll build my own cache to work in so I don't accidentally move over to the RAM and things like that. But my thought is more that when we hit that level, when we do eventually hit our hardware restrictions, which are quite a bit away off, the processor, not as much. We've known for quite a while that consumer grade processors are kind of going to hit their peak here pretty soon. In terms of efficiency, because you can get ones that are less power done, but there's entire lectures you can watch about look, we're hitting a point that the consumer grade processor will always have more and more cores, but there's those things aren't. Those things can be infinite. It's based on how big your board space is and how small you can make stuff. But the logic to balance things is not a one-to-one. If you have 2 cores, you're not twice as good as 1 core.
Right.
And the more cores you have, the more that has to balance and things of that nature. But I think what we're instead going to see is we're going to hit a level where hardware has kind of stagnated a little bit, and companies are going to be more concerned about making their software cheap, since they're used to it being cheap, and getting it sold and used. They aren't necessarily going to be about the system. Because I think Microsoft, and I think Apple, and I think Google, when the people that are selling you a device care a lot about the efficiency, because they want to be able to say, oh, I've got this long alive time, I've got this cool new processor that does this, I can, you're selling an engineering machine, this is how fast I can do an AutoCAD of this level and things like that. But the average person selling you software cares about selling you that software, and if your computer starts being slow, they're going to say, okay, well, what else are you running? Oh, that other competitor software? No, you're just running too much. You need to go get more X. You need to go do more Y. Because that's what we see today. I was reading an article about, when you look at the average price a developer gets made, it's so super off from what developers actually make. Already, developers make a little bit less, every couple of years, because it's becoming...
New developers make a little bit less.
That's true. I mean, the same level. So if you have 5 years experience, 5 years from now you make a little bit less than you would have 5 years ago if you only had 5 years experience. But there is, out there, a whole subgenre of developers that make we're going to talk North Carolina money, $40,000 a year, that are real software developers. All they do is 100% software development. And it's just that they're generally not very good at it. Maybe they don't have any education at all, or if they have some education, it's poor education. And they're basically the people that just churn out little apps and other pieces of software for people. And they know they're not good, and the companies that sell them know they're not good, but it's enough to make a profit, so they do it.
So I see what you're saying with that, and I don't necessarily disagree overall about the current trend, in the next 2 to 3 years. But I'm talking about 5 to 10 years down the road, and I think that everybody, the SDKs, the basic way that you develop these things, not the way that you're taught to do it, because we're still working off of 1965 teachings. In college.
Well, it's not that bad.
So 1975.
Not well.
we aren't quite up to the 90s.
2014. No, I mean, as someone who's gone through this, the average delay at a university that keeps up to date. There could be ones that
I understand, but I'm saying the how far we are behind and how exponentially far we go forward. There's a huge gap there between learning and what someone needs to be at one of these places developing things that are efficient for these companies. You have to learn so much in between.
Okay, so you want to say the difference between someone fresh out of college and a senior engineer. Yeah, there's a lot of experience there.
So, but also when we go to things if I'm learning Python, the things that I'm learning about are things from the 70s and 80s, where we were talking about resource constraints for 8-bit machines, or 16-bit machines. And even though we're talking about 32-bit and 64-bit machines, we still have like some of those word count constraints that we're concerned with, and that while they're important, they're not. It's important to understand. We're not teaching necessarily the way that you need to correlate that to like modern technologies. So I'm saying that from that standpoint, not from like, are we teaching technologies from what era, but what technology concepts are we necessarily teaching with those technologies? And there's some places they're going to teach more like 2014, 2015 type era stuff, and that's only like 5 years old. Okay, that's fine, and you can learn other things if you want to on your own, and so forth, so on and so forth. I'm not necessarily talking about that, but what I'm saying is, if you look at the trend of the past and how we're repeating a lot of those same things now, with the way that we're thinking about things, we're going in this rise and fall of things. In the future, we are probably going to be at some sort of issue where we have resource constraints, and we have to start thinking about the way that we're actually applying the software to the hardware. Because the hardware resources.
Yeah, I mean, I can definitely see someday we loop back around. I'm just not sure I see that as soon as 10 years. Because you're right. I mean, software development and really just how people think about software does go in these circles. I mean, when I was in school, the big hot thing was basically like object-driven programming, and you're making your classes, you're building things based around what is the real-world thing I'm trying to emulate here. And then it goes back to, well, what if we were maybe doing this all stuff, and don't structure it like that. That's stupid. Instead, structure it in this way. And then like, well, maybe now Agile is really what we should be doing. All these little small commits. And they're like, well, that didn't really work out because we didn't understand it. So we'll go back to waterfall. And like these things kind of go in these loops, and they have for like a long time.
Yeah, absolutely.
I just think we're pretty far off from that loop back around to where this hits, because most, and this is one place I'll just have to disagree, almost any university that's accredited. There's universities that aren't accredited. The average delay between what is happening in the world, not necessarily what's happening at Google, the bleeding edge. We look at, what is being done in software development. There's about a 5-year delay. And that's because it takes about that long to vet a curriculum, to write the books, to get it into the students, and then kind of get the students out of school. And, and that's kind of what they tell you. You're a couple years behind, the layout in general. If you go work at the big company, you're probably further behind than that because you're doing some new stuff. But I know right now today they are not teaching this resource stuff as heavily as even they did when I was in school. And I got some of it, but I didn't get a whole lot of it. My father, when he was doing this sort of stuff, got way more. That's all of his life, what his stuff was. So even if tomorrow we hit that resource constraint and then it became a real big topic for everybody, it'd be 5 years before new developers were coming out that, or really, longer than that. It'd be 9 years because they have to go through their entire curriculum just for the new developers to be coming through with that mentality.
But that's within 5 to 10 years.
But that's if it happened tomorrow, and I don't think it's going to happen tomorrow.
I think we're closer to it. We're a lot closer to it than you think we are.
I mean, I will see, but I just don't think we're quite there yet. I mean, because I look at our repositories, and not even the ones that we develop, but just the ones our companies develop. And we're not doing these practices.
I'm looking at the chipset technologies that are coming out in the next year, and how we're iterating on those things and what's happening, and we're at a place where we're about to hit one of those another.
Oh well, yeah, but see, there's a big difference between when does the hardware stop being in the optimum place for it to be, as opposed to when is the drive from the consumer for the technology going to be there, because we're going to have to hit the limited chipsets. And then we're going to have people running enough software that's resource managed badly enough for it to become an issue.
But we can stop it here.
Yeah,
we just disagree because we'll talk about it until the cows come home. But we don't. What we don't disagree on is that it's coming. What we do disagree on is necessarily the time period.
Yeah.
which is fine. I mean, maybe my prediction's off by a year or two, but I think that probably within the next 5 to 10 years, we're gonna start seeing those people starting to be concerned. Even if it's not every developer, we're going to start seeing the concerns and start the talk about got resource constraints and things.
Yeah, and I think I can very firmly say that those talks will start happening within 5 to 10 years.
That's what I'm talking about.
I think we'll notice the problem within them, but I think
the Googles, the Microsofts, the Apples, those are going to start being concerned with those resource constraints.
Yeah, we just probably won't have that. I think that problem fixed for a while longer, because it does take a while.
It's not. I'm not saying it's going to be fixed. I'm just saying we're gonna start having to be concerned about those things. Anyways, so we've captured probably 15 to 30 minutes more of your time than we thought we would,
and you loved it. Hopefully, you had to, because you wouldn't be here if you didn't love it. You would have already left. You would have said, "I don't care about this." Next beer.
Next beer. So this has been the 15th episode of Season 2 of the Beer and Broadband Podcast. We have a Twitter, and we'd love for you to engage with us there. We're thinking about doing maybe like an Untapped or something like that, where we can like kind of share our beers with you guys. If you'd love to see that, let us know on Twitter. Otherwise, thanks for listening, and we'll catch you next time.